My guest today, Nick Shelton, I first saw on a TEDx talk called The Creative Solution to Social Anxiety. He's the author of a book, An Introvert's Guide to World Domination. Nick really caught my attention because he's an introvert who has dealt with social anxiety over his life. And he and I are quite different in this realm of introversion and extroversion. So I thought, hey, let me bring on somebody around a topic that's fascinated me over the years that I actually relate a little bit less to.
Welcome to Leading with Curiosity. Command and control leadership is dead. We interview leaders, entrepreneurs, and executive coaches challenging old paradigms and fostering cutting-edge leadership. Here's your host, certified executive coach, Nate Leslie.
If you are watching this, I am not dressed as a mall walker. I am clearly Ken from the Barbie movie. So, Nick, let's get into it. Welcome to Leading with Curiosity.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
What led you to being on stage doing a TEDx talk called The Creative Solution to Social Anxiety when there you are, nervous about getting in front of strangers?
Well, it seemed like the thing to do when I figured out how to sort of hack this in my own life. I said, I need to share this with other people. There are people that are struggling. This is a real issue for people. And, not saying that my unique take on it is universal and it works 100% of the time for everybody, but it will work for some people. So we had to put it out there.
Right on. So you've got a creative brain. You said, I need to figure this out for myself. And you figured out a hack that has worked for you. Let's offer some free takeaways for our listeners right off the bat. What manifests for you and how do you address it?
So for that particular thing, the social anxiety, I thought of this principle in that, so my best friend is a police officer and I was observing him and I noticed, okay, well, when he puts on the uniform, whether he feels like it or not, because many times he didn't feel like it, but he's like, well, I'm in the uniform. I have to be a police officer. I must do what the uniform suggests. And then I thought about uniforms and I said, well, yeah, firefighters and soldiers and anything that has a uniform, when people put it on, they become what that uniform represents. And so I said, well, instead of having that big uniform, what if we had a private one that only we know about? So it could be a watch, a necklace, a bracelet, something like that. And I said, okay, well, for my public speaking, for example, if I put on the uniform, if I say like this watch is my public speaking uniform, when I put it on, whether I feel like it or not, I am that and I must conduct myself as such, then that worked for me. And some people would say, well, that won't work for me. Okay, now you've just made it so it won't work for you, but you have to want it to work for you. And if you look at it like my friend with the police uniform, he could be like, I don't feel like a police officer. This isn't working. Well, too bad. You're a police officer. Go do your job. So I tell myself the same thing. Too bad you have the uniform on. Go do your job.
So yeah, that's interesting. So all of us face this thing where you're about to face this moment of performance, whether it's a social interaction or getting on stage or being a police officer, and kind of making that shift. Like it or not, that moment is coming. And for some people, that transition from behind closed doors or being by themselves or from not being on stage to being on stage is a harder contrast or transition, I guess, for some than others. Does that resonate with you?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. There's a big transition. And I don't know, since you're from the opposite side of the spectrum, maybe it's all the same feeling to you, but for a lot of people, it's like, oh, I have to go. And it might not even just be like on stage. It could be just an interaction, some small talk with somebody. It could be asking someone out on a date. Now, all of a sudden, there's all this pressure. To some people, maybe not be, maybe no pressure. But there's a lot of us that do feel this is out. There's a lot out of the comfort zone for a lot of people, that some people have a much wider comfort zone than others.
But there's always an edge to that comfort zone. And when it comes to asking people out on a date, I would say perception is reality. I thought I was really good at it. My now wife would say not so much.
Yes, true. But you thought that you were good at it. So it it helped you at least put that effort in, and the
Yeah.
result, you got the result.
I just went ahead and did it anyway. Well,
Yes.
let's talk about this topic, because with a lot of my clients, this comes up, whether we're using an assessment tool that I often talk about on this show, Principles U or principlesus.com, created by Adam Grant, or any personality assessment that might measure that introversion, extroversion. It's always a fascinating topic. It seems to me, I love this idea that extroverts get their energy from people and then go off and spend that energy. Picture a battery, right? Some introverts need to charge their battery on their own so that they can then spend that battery power with people. What's your take on that?
I feel that that is accurate in that. So when I get up in the morning, I bounce out of bed, I have my energy, I'm ready to go. But then once I go out into society and I start interacting with people, it kind of takes a little bit out of that. And then if I get on stage, then it takes a lot of that. And then I'll need to go and be alone, lay down somewhere, take a walk by myself, something like that to recharge to get that back, because it's very draining. So when I talk about being introverted, some people just immediately feel like, oh, you don't want to go and do anything with anybody. But no, that's not the case. You have a certain limit, and then when you hit that, you're done. You're ready to go. So I can go to a social event and I can come out the gate strong. Hey, everybody. But then maybe 20 minutes in, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm ready. I'm ready.
And we haven't even talked about talking. A lot of people assume it's just about, are you chatty in public, or are you quieter, right? And that's a very kind of limiting definition. Just talk a little bit more about sort of the what introversion means to you. Anything we haven't covered yet?
So we covered the energy part of it, but then there's also a lot of times people stumble in for the conversational thing. Like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. And people expect from maybe seeing someone like you walk into the room, I'm here, everybody, what's going on? You know, you know, and they say, well, I'm not doing that. I can't do that. So they say, I don't know. They expect if I show up somewhere, people are going to think that I'm going to do that. And I have to be the center of attention. I have to seem like I know what I'm doing. But I tell people, first, just show up, just be in the room. And then to take that pressure off, first, I say, most people say, I'm going to meet 20 people tonight and shake 20 hands. But I say, say, I will meet one person. And because, you can do that. And then you can just meet one person and leave, or you might end up meeting more than one, but one, set the bar really low. And then also to combat maybe some imposter syndrome too, and not knowing what to do, say, I don't know what's going on. When you walk in, say, yeah, I have no idea. And like, I'll tell people, I just came for the snacks. They have really good snacks here. I don't know what's going on. And then that takes the pressure off. I don't have to pretend like I know what's going on. And somebody, maybe I meet you, you would love to share your expertise on what's going on with me. Here's what's going on. Let me tell you. And then I don't have to be like, yes, I also know what's going on. No, I don't know. And even if I kind of know, I can still say I don't know. And then that pressure's off, and somebody else will take me into their
Somebody like me will fill the void, right?
Yes. Yes.
Well, there's another example that's a little hack or a strategy. You found something, a little joke about the snacks, right? You've found something that just gets you over the hump in that room full of strangers and kind of sparks that first conversation, which is really common, like just getting started for most of us. Yeah. And I imagine these are the types of things that you've developed over time. And I know you talk about them in your book, which we'll link to in the show notes, An Introvert's Guide to World Domination, book you wrote about a few years ago. What led to that, to think I need to put this on paper? And of course, and then you've also done it, I need to talk about this on stage. Two interesting things for an introvert.
Yes. It started out by, I had to navigate the social situations myself because I felt like I was missing out on opportunities. I'd see someone like you doing things to be like, I would like some of those opportunities myself. How do I do that? Because I'm not just going to walk in and say, just walk up to the person and ask. Nope, not happening. I need to find a different way. So I observed, used myself as a guinea pig, and started testing things out. Did a lot of failure, but then found ways that would work, something that I could do that I would do. And then once it started working for me, people noticed, and then I got invited to speak on the topic. And then so I was talking about networking as an introvert. And then someone asked, where can I get your book? I didn't have a book. So I wrote the book because I knew what I wanted to say. So it wasn't hard to write it. Wrote the book, and then it just took off from there. And so it's just processes. If you know the next step, then you can do it. Anyone can do it. You just have to know what to do once you enter that room.
That's interesting. Know the next step, not even 10 steps. Know the next step. Yeah.
Yes.
So here you are, keynote speaker on the topic of being nervous in front of others. I just think it's really courageous. That's what attracted me to you, Nick. And I just thought this is fascinating. You'll talk about putting ourselves out there. And
Yes.
what have you learned about yourself through this process of getting on stage, talking about this passion?
It's really interesting to observe, myself and how I am in situations. So, to say that I'm always confident is not true. Sometimes I'm terrified, and then I go, man, shouldn't be this scared. I should be okay with this by now. But I still do it anyway. And I go, okay, well, it worked. And then sometimes I am. So sometimes I am confident. I'll get out there and it's like, not a big deal. But I don't know from day to day what changes in there, but it's just doing it anyway. And once again, the steps, I think when you get in your head and you make it about you. So I said, okay, it's not about me. It's about them. What can I give? And then it's all the shift in perspective. So if you know what to do and you shift your perspective, like at an event, when I walk into an event, it's, you have to pick someplace, you have to show up. Nothing happens at your house. You have to go out. So when I'm walking in, usually say it out loud, cape walk. So I walk like I'm wearing a cape. So then that way I know that my shoulders are back, my posture is going to be good, and I'm going to walk. I might not feel confident, but at least I will give the appearance of confidence, and that physiology will help actually get me there. And I show up early because if you show up late, what happens is, everybody's already in there. You're trying to find, is there a seat? Where's a seat? How do I navigate this? What's going on? And you fear that everyone's going to turn and look at you as you walk in, which you might love, but I don't love that. So if I show up early, I get the lay of the land. I see where everything is. I can position myself in the room and then watch people come in. And then I can say, okay, who do I want to engage with as I watch people come in? They're trying to figure it out. I'm already there. I already know what's going on. So I'm more
preparation. Yeah.
And then, there's just these little steps that you'd say, what do I do next? I look for the food, go over to the food. I can talk about the food. That's conversation topics. I can observe, make conversations about what I see. I can get like a snack, something to hold in my hands, something to do with my hands. So I don't have to worry about how I look with my hands. And then I'd say next year, what I call hunting introverts. This wouldn't apply to you, but me, I would look around the room to try to find someone that looks like I feel. So
Wow.
I say, that person looks uncomfortable and like they don't know what's going on. I'm going to go rescue them. So I walk over and then I say, I don't know what's going on. And they go, I don't know either. And then, well, we'll be together. And then you want to get a third person. So the next step, get a third person, because 2, it's hard to carry the conversation sometimes. But with 3, the conversation can keep going easily. 4 is too many because there's always one person that's just silent. So 3, conversation goes. Plus, if there's 3, you can leave if you want to, because then they're still together. You're not just leaving someone by themselves. And so there's all these little nuances, but if you know the next step, what do I do next? This, I'm looking for one other person. I'm doing this next. Then it's easy to navigate. It's just that next step.
Yeah. Great practical tips. You said 4 or 5 things. I'm going to mention them and then I'm going to pick them off one at a time. Doing it anyway. What can I give these people? Your cape walk and preparation. I'm going to start actually with Cape Walk. I was just looking here. Previous episode with Rob Salafia. He works at MIT in the MBA program and wrote a book. He's a previous guest on the show, Leading from Your Best Self. Rob was a street performer in his former life, tightrope walking, miming, juggling, that kind of thing. Now works with leaders across America and through the MIT MBA program, so super smart people on executive. And you just said, I pretend I'm walking with a cape. My shoulders are back. He talks a lot about when were you best at your best in your life? For example, he had a client who was a CEO, nervous, running meetings. Turned out the CEO was a former national judo champion. And Rob says, well, what did you look and feel like standing, getting ready for a match in the national championships? And of course, it was shoulders back, hands strong. So that embodying with your body how you want to feel in your mind is very similar to your cape walk. And that's executive presence. We all, whether you're a public speaker in front of 10 or 10,000, or I'm doing my work in front of a leadership team or with a leadership team, how we present ourselves is really important, right? How we
Right.
position our physical body so that our mind can follow.
Yes. It makes a huge difference. These little tiny things like that make a huge difference in how you feel and also how you're perceived.
And second, you said, do it anyway. And I wrote the word courage. The definition of courage is to be scared and do it anyway. It's like your friend who's, I don't feel like a police officer. Well, your shift starts in 1 hour. Do it,
Right.
do it anyway, right?
Yes.
You're going to go meet some bad guys. Do it anyway.
Right.
So you got to get on stage. Sometimes that might feel like the last place you want to be on that day, or you're excited about it. Do it anyway, right?
Yes. Yeah, you push through, and then, so sometimes it's that first few minutes that I'm like, and then just kind of settle into it. You go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now
Yeah.
I'm in there. And sometimes you never settle in, but you just do it. You go through the motions, and it works out.
The sun,
and even if
the sun still sets and the sun still rises.
And some people say, well, what if you fail? What if something happens that it wasn't supposed to happen and it's embarrassing? Then I shift that view like, this is going to be a great story. So I say, I can't wait to tell this story about what happened. If I got on stage and tripped and fell or something, I'd be like, all right, well, later on, I'm going to retell this and it's going to be hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. And that connects to this idea of what can I give? A story can give people a feeling or a laugh or a shared experience. I'll address some stereotypes of extroverts. Just when I walk into the room doesn't mean, like you said, that I want everyone looking at me. No. Okay. That's one. And also when I'm working in my line of work as an executive coach and leadership facilitator, I'm working with really smart people, and I have to realize this experience I'm about to have with them through a one-to-one coaching call or facilitating an in-person event. It's not about me. What can I give them, my client or your audience? What value can we provide? And then suddenly you realize the eyes are on them, and the more we can make it about them, the less we need to make it about us. Like, I'm not putting on a show here. I'm trying to add value. What do you make of that?
I love that. And yes, when you make it about them, and it's the giving, and then there's also the shift. Like, it made me think of one public speaking thing that I thought of if you get up and you're worried about, oh, everyone's looking at me and judging me or whatever you might think. One fun thing, and I've done this in speaking at a university, the students were there, and then I pointed someone out. What do you think? To one of the unsuspecting students, and they're like, oh, he's addressing me. And then now they're on their toes. Like, I didn't know he's going to be calling out people in the audience. And so now I'm not thinking that they're quietly sitting there judging me. Now they're like, is he judging us? What's happening? So it just changes the energy dynamic, but there's all these little different things. That's a little separate than what can you give, but I'm just saying that that's just a tweak on just that shift when you're up there to
shifting the focus, right?
Right.
Yeah. That connects to another previous episode on interviewed a woman who's writing a book called You'd Have to Be an Idiot to Want to Be a Guru. It's about wisdom and meditation. the more we accept that we know almost nothing about anything, only then are we truly free. And that's been liberating for me to think, even if you're giving a keynote, oh, okay, your message, you're up there to deliver a message, but really it's for the audience to take what they can from that experience. And we don't have to know everything about everything. That's a ridiculous notion that you up there have to be the expert. So it's a giving away of this sort of control or center of attention idea, even though there might literally be a spotlight on you when you're on
Yes.
stage. It's a giving away of thinking that you need to be perfect or you need to have the answers. Is anything useful in there for a guy like you?
Right. Yeah. I think that's great in that you're sharing some of the stories. And what I often say is, not all of this is going to apply to everyone, but take something from it. There's going to be
Mm-hmm.
something that you can
Mm-hmm.
use, just like my
Mm-hmm.
book. I say, well, not everything in there is going to be useful, but the something in there is going to be like, ooh, I can use this one thing. And that one thing might make a huge difference in your life just by applying this thing. Whether you're, coaching or giving a speech, you're sharing, hey, here's some experiences, here's some different ways to look at it. And if something vibes with you, then grab onto that and maybe we can expand on that. And then if not, you don't have to try to carry it all. Just dismiss what's not relevant to you right now. Maybe come back to it later and grab onto those pieces that are calling to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to take our last couple of minutes here just to look a little bit more at this extroversion introversion thing, and I'm stealing this directly from Adam Grant's work in this Principles U personality assessment. Anybody listening, there's a free offer. Just go to principlesu.com and take it. But it talks about introversion extroversion is about how people prefer to engage with the world of people, opportunity, and experiences. And it kind of breaks it down into three categories, and I'll give you all three, and then we'll kind of back up. How gregarious are you? How engaging are you? And how adventurous are you? Three different things. Gregarious being having a preference or not for being with other people, talking and socializing. That's that networking you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Being outgoing. Engaging, according to this language, is having a preference or not to be in the spotlight and entertaining others. Thirdly, adventurous, the adventurous facet score they measure, is how much you prefer for adventurous and exciting activities and experiences. So the first one is about interacting with other people socially, gregarious. Engaging, about being in the social spotlight. And finally, adventurous, how much you like kind of getting out of your comfort zone with exciting activities and experiences. Okay, back to gregarious. Preference for being with other people, talking and socializing. What's hard? Let's see. We've covered a little bit of this. Which of those three is catching your attention, Nick? Because that's an interesting one. The interacting with others, being in the spotlight, or being adventurous.
Well, for me, I like all of them, but not all the
Interesting.
time.
Okay, there
I
you
like
go.
conditions on it.
Okay, yeah. So even though you probably would show up as more introverted on this scale, some of
Right.
them, some of these subscales might be higher. And it's almost like, what's it time for right now? You do like all of them
Yes.
at the right time in the right amount.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like the idea of the adventure because I'm like, well, what's going to happen? Let's see. And then the gregarious,
Yeah. Socializing and
that,
being outgoing. Yeah.
yes, that, there's a time and place because I know it's really important because everything that we want to do is, somebody's already doing it or they have access to it. And so, meeting people really opens up a lot of doors. So that's necessary. And you never know when you might meet your next best friend or something. And you have to
Okay.
actually talk to somebody to figure
Connected
that
to your
out.
adventure. What's about to happen, right? That
Right.
maybe I'll meet somebody awesome today. Okay,
Right.
cool.
And you're not
And
expecting it.
yeah, and then engaging that social spotlight and entertaining others.
Right. I like that just because there's and so people ask me a lot with the introversion about the speaking on stage, things like that. And what I like about that spotlight of that is that it seems like it might be a lot of work to be on the stage, but as far as networking, I found if I attend an event and I'm not a speaker, then I'm going around the event networking, talking to people, but I'm sort of validating myself like, hey, this is who I am, and I'm trying to let you know who I am. But if I'm on the stage, you know who I am already because so now when I get off the stage, usually people will try to come and meet me. I don't have to try to go and meet them. But so that's the difference. So I said, the more spotlight I get, the more people, they already know my story. So I
Mm.
don't have to go and try to tell them my story. If they want to engage with me, they just saw me, they know my story.
And
And
that
now,
gives you your topic. And I can tell right
right,
from when I met you, once we're in a conversation, you're good, right? It's that stepping
that's
over that
the initial thing.
the
Yeah.
initial void, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess I told you a lie here today, Nick, because I said I don't always, as an extrovert, like to be in the spotlight when I walk into the room. But as I've pulled up my Principles U profile, it tells me that the engaging category, you have a strong preference for being in the social spotlight and entertaining others in the 99th percentile
Wow.
of the 2.5 million people who
Yes.
have taken this.
Like,
But
I'm
it's
here, everybody.
but it's
Yes.
so interesting because I might have done that a bit more in college. I don't do that now. And I love also time alone. Like I love walks alone. So this is, it's like fluid, right? What is it time for right now? I don't see myself as this necessarily all the time. This has been a really, really interesting conversation for me, Nick. I have one more question. Let's challenge the paradigm because we talked, it seemed in this social setting as though the extroverts maybe have something the introverts don't. However, let's think about meetings or social gatherings where the extrovert, the gregarious extrovert, takes up all the airtime and doesn't let anybody else speak. What is the introvert superpower to actually stay quiet? And let's make a stereotype. So what are you thinking about that extrovert that's taken up all the airtime because they're so gregarious?
Well, so I think the superpower of introverts is observation. So we've been taking in all the information, and you could say, well, I had some ideas too, but I guess you won't be hearing those today.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. But I would encourage all those gregarious extroverts that are your listeners to, you know, have a little room because there's some people that have been observing and taking in a lot of information and, maybe give the floor to them a little bit to see what they've observed because
Yeah.
they definitely have gathered some stuff and they need to feel comfortable being able to share that.
You said giving them room. So the leaders in here are the people working in organizations or on teams. If you're the gregarious one, make the conscious choice to create that space and give those extroverts who have had all that time while we're busy yapping to process and observe for them to be able to share their gold with the room.
Yes.
That's a great final takeaway for those of us who are a little gregarious
And I will
at times.
say, in that situation, let them know ahead of time. Say, at the end, I'm going to ask you what your things are. Because if you
Okay.
just spring it on them, if you just talk and then you say, by the way,
Yeah.
Nate, what did you have? And then they're like, what? No, I wasn't expecting you to all of a
Right.
sudden hit me
Yeah.
with this.
Yeah.
Let them know ahead of time. I might go a little long, but at the end of this, I'm going to go around and I'm going to ask what your 2 cents is on this. So at least they're prepared to share that, and so they're not blindsided by it, because that can
Nice.
also
Yeah. Nice,
create
nice,
something.
nice advice. They're not necessarily waiting to talk, so not to blindside them. I should mention again, I work closely with the company, but this is a free tool at this point anyways. But this principles you could take it, Nick. I can take it and we can share it with each other and it actually would compare and contrast us. So it's been amazing. I've done it with my daughter, with my wife, with work colleagues, and it really helps give insight. And the whole reason Adam Grant built it is the better we understand ourselves, the better we understand each other, the more effectively we can work or have a relationship with each other. So that's just a
Yes.
fun way to better understand the people that are important to us. And as you said, you have a great quote that the quality of our life determines the quality of our is determined by the quality of our relationships. Did I get that right?
Yes, yes, yes. The quality of our life is determined by the quality of our relationships. Yeah, it's everything. It's
Yeah.
everything. The relationships
Well,
are ultimately everything.
that's all we have, really. So hopefully there's a listener who can think more openly about the quality of their relationships, and there's something in here from this conversation that will help them deepen those relationships. So, Nick Shelton, if anybody wants to find you, we'll link to your book in the show notes, An Introvert's Guide to World Domination. I'll also link to your TEDx talk, A Creative Solution to Social Anxiety. Where else can people find you if they want to follow you or get in touch?
They can go to connectedintroverts.com. They can also go to LinkedIn, type in Nick Shelton. I'm easy to find. I pop right up, my smiling face. And yeah, I would love to hear from any of your listeners. I'd love to help out. I do workshops, and I have quite a few different angles we can approach this from.
Right on. Thanks, Nick. Connected Introvert or Introverts? Connected Introvert?
Introvert, singular.
ConnectedIntrovert.com. Thanks for your
Yes.
time, Nick. This was great.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Leading with Curiosity. Please share, follow, and rate the show so that other leaders can make positive change in the world. Connect with Nate at nateleslie.ca. And remember, the brain behaves very differently when encouraged to think rather than told to listen.